The scoreboard flashed 44.10, and for 2 full seconds, the entire crowd at the Ed Murphy Classic in Memphis went completely silent. Then it exploded. A 17-year-old kid from a Maryland high school had just run the 4th fastest 400 meters on the entire planet in 2025. Not 4th among teenagers. Not 4th in America. 4th in the world. And the man he left behind was Steven Gardiner, the reigning Olympic champion from the Bahamas, same man who ran 43.48 to win gold in Tokyo. Let that land for a second. Quincy Wilson was born on January 8, 2008, in Chesapeake, Virginia. No coach knocked on his door. No scout pulled his parents aside. He just ran. At 8 years old, something was immediately, undeniably different about the way he moved. By 14, he broke a 30-year-old national under-14 record in the 400 meters. A record that had survived 3 decades. Gone. Erased by a kid who still had homework due the next morning. The day after that performance, his parents made a decision that most families would never seriously consider. They packed everything up and relocated from Chesapeake to Gaithersburg, Maryland, so their son could attend Bullis School, one of the most elite athletic prep programs in the country. That sacrifice is the foundation on which everything else is built. His freshman year, at just 15 years old, he walked into the New Balance Indoor Nationals surrounded by juniors and seniors who had spent years building toward that exact moment. He beat every single one of them by more than half a second, winning in 46.67. The commentators genuinely could not believe what they were watching. Sophomore year, he went back and broke the indoor national record, running 45.76 at 16. Then came June 2024, the U.S. Olympic trials in Indianapolis. Every professional quarter-miler in America, all adults, all competing for the moment they had spent years preparing for. Wilson ran 44.66 in the preliminaries and erased a 42-year-old high school record without blinking. 2 days later in the semifinals, he broke his own record again, running 44.59. He finished 6th overall in the final. 6th among the best 400-meter runners in the United States. He was still a sophomore in high school. He did not make the individual Olympic team that day, but he was added to the 4x400 relay pool, making him the youngest American male track and field Olympian in history at 16 years old. 1 month later in Gainesville, Florida, he lined up next to Bryce Deadman, a 27-year-old professional who had just made the Olympic team himself. They went stride for stride the entire race. Wilson crossed in 44.20. Deadman crossed in 44.23. A high school kid beat a professional Olympic athlete and set the under-18 world record for the 3rd time in 60 days. At Paris 2024, because he ran the relay heat, he received a gold medal and became the youngest track and field athlete in history to win Olympic gold at 16 years old. Then early 2025 arrived, and something unexpected happened. He lost. A fellow high schooler named Jaden Horton Mims outran him at a high-profile meet, and people started questioning whether the hype had come too soon. His coach, Joe Lee at Bullis, kept repeating the same thing over and over. Stay on our process. Do what we got to do. Wilson took that loss and turned it into fuel. Coach Lee had deliberately kept Wilson's schedule light through the early months of 2025, building him toward one specific moment. That moment came on July 12, 2025, in Memphis. Lane 5. Steven Gardiner in Lane 6, right beside him. The same Gardiner who ran 43.48 in Tokyo. For any teenager, that should have been terrifying. Wilson shot out of the blocks like the gun had fired twice. By the first turn, he had already closed the stagger on the Olympic champion and was running shoulder to shoulder with him. Down the backstretch, he was smooth, controlled, completely calm. Gardiner eventually pulled up, likely with an injury. Deadman in Lane 3 tried to close the gap in the final stretch. He could not. Wilson pulled away and crossed in 44.10. After the race, Wilson said exactly this. "My coach has been telling me, stay on our process. Do what we got to do. I went out there and shot out like a bullet." Only 29 men in the entire history of track and field have ever broken 44 seconds. Wilson sits at 44.10. He now owns 6 of the 10 fastest times ever run by an under-18 athlete. On the all-time under-20 list, only Steve Lewis sits above him. Lewis ran 43.87 to win Olympic gold at the 1988 Seoul Olympics at age 19. That record has stood for 37 years. Wilson is 18, with a 44.10. A sub, 44 from a high schooler, something that has literally never happened in the entire history of the sport, is now a real conversation people are genuinely having. He was not done in 2026. At the New Balance Indoor Nationals, he went for his fourth consecutive national title, something almost no athlete in any sport has ever accomplished. Jaden Deline pushed him all the way to the wire. Wilson won by 0.01 seconds, running 45.37 and breaking his own indoor national record in the most dramatic finish that competition has ever seen. 4 straight titles, freshman through senior year. Then at the Penn Relays, his Bullis team won the Championship of America in the 4x400 relay, the first American team to win that race since Long Beach Poly in 2007. Wilson anchored with a split of 45.58, the only athlete in the field who came anywhere close to cracking 46 seconds. He is now committed to the University of Maryland, but the real target is Los Angeles 2028. He will be 20 years old, likely at the absolute peak of his athletic life, competing at a home Olympics on American soil. The Steve Lewis under-20 record of 43.87 from 1988 is sitting right there waiting. Wilson is only 0.23 seconds away. His age progression has been relentless: 46.67 at 15, 45.76 at 16, 44.10 at 17. If that curve continues even half as steeply, the record falls. Quincy Wilson is 18 years old, and history is genuinely looking over its shoulder. Now switch your attention to an entirely different story, because what happened in Budapest in 2023 is the kind of thing that sounds too dramatic to be real until you watch the footage yourself. On the opening night of the World Athletics Championships, Femke Bol was supposed to deliver a routine anchor leg in the mixed 4x400 relay. The Netherlands were leading. The crowd was loud. The gold medal felt certain. Then, in a single brutal second, everything collapsed. Bol hit the ground face first just meters from the finish line. The stadium went silent. The United States swept past and took the gold while Bol lay on the track staring up at the ceiling of a nightmare she had never experienced before in her life. She said it herself, with complete honesty. "I do not know what happened. It has never happened to me before. I cramped toward the finish line. I was pushing and pushing. I was disappointed that my body did not have it in it to finish the race strongly." Anyone watching that moment believed the 2023 World Championships was over for Femke Bol. They were wrong. What separates her from almost every other athlete on the planet is not her speed. It is not her technique. It is what happens inside her head after everything falls apart. While the world was still processing that fall, she had already made a decision. She was not going to dwell on it. She had more races to run, and she was going to run them better than anyone thought possible. Her coach, Laurent Muley, had told people before the championships that Bol would run faster than ever in the 400-meter hurdles. At the time, it sounded like something a coach just says to keep spirits up. What happened next proved he was absolutely right. On a hot and humid night in Budapest, Femke Bol stepped onto the very same track where she had fallen, stood in front of the very same crowd that had watched her collapse, and ran 51.45 seconds to win the gold medal in the women's 400-meter hurdles final. Her first ever individual world title. The first gold medal for the entire Dutch team at those championships. When she crossed that finish line and began her victory lap, it felt like the entire stadium was finally exhaling something they had been holding for 2 days. She had not just recovered. She had dominated. But the moment that truly shocked everyone had not happened yet. The women's 4x400 relay was still to come. Bol was handed the baton on the final leg, with the Netherlands several meters behind the leaders and the finish line closing fast. Any other athlete in that position accepts silver. Any other athlete in that moment does not believe there is enough track left to close that gap. Femke Bol is not any other athlete. Stride by stride, the gap started shrinking. The crowd began to realize what was happening. The noise inside that stadium grew louder with every meter she covered. She was catching them. She was actually catching them. And then, in one of the most breathtaking finishes of the entire championship, she overtook the leaders and crossed the line first. 2 gold medals, same track, same week, 48 hours after falling on her face in front of the whole world. She was 23 years old and already the most complete 400-meter athlete in European history. And the most frightening part for every other competitor on the planet is this: she was still nowhere near her ceiling. Now for the story nobody saw coming at the USA Indoor Championships in New York on March 1st, 2026. Noah Lyles walked into that arena carrying his championship belt, carrying his Olympic 100-meter gold from Paris 2024, and carrying a public warning he had already delivered to every reporter in the building. Nobody was leaving with his belt. He had not competed at this championship in over 9 years. He showed up specifically to make a statement. What happened instead changed the conversation about the sport's next generation overnight. Jordan Anthony grew up in Tylertown, Mississippi. Population under 2,000. Football town, Friday nights, stadium lights, and a kid who wanted the Heisman Trophy, not a starting block. He was a 4-star recruit, one of the top 12 athletes in the entire state, and he signed with the University of Kentucky as a wide receiver. Track was something he did, in his own words, for giggles, running to stay sharp for football routes and nothing more. Then his football career started slipping through his fingers. 2 games at Kentucky, a transfer to Texas A&M for more games, then another transfer to Arkansas, where his entire 2024 college football career ended at 8 catches, 111 yards, and 1 touchdown. 3 schools for years. The depth charts never moved. Before the 2024-25 season, he made a decision. He walked away from football completely and went all in on the track. That first full season erased every question mark immediately. Anthony won the SEC Indoor Championship in the 60 meters. He won the SEC Outdoor Championship in the 100 meters, running from lane 9, the worst position on the track, and winning by just 0.03 seconds. He ran 9.95 seconds in the 100 at the SEC Championships. At the NCAA West qualifier, he ran a wind-aided 9.75, tying the second fastest collegiate mark in history under any conditions. He became the first sprinter since 2017 to sweep both the indoor and outdoor national titles in the same season. In December, he won the Bowerman Award, the highest individual honor in American college track and field. Standing at the podium, he said, "A football player winning the Bowerman. That's crazy." He signed with Adidas, turned professional, and then made a move that would create the most fascinating rivalry in the sport. He joined Noah Lyles' own training group in Claremont, Florida, under coach Lance Browman. Every single day, Anthony trained beside the man who owned the sport. The 2026 indoor season started poorly. He finished 3rd at the Millrose Games on February 1st, running 6.64 seconds. People said he couldn't handle the professional level. He used it as fuel. 13 days later at the Tyson Invitational in Fayetteville, Arkansas, he ran 6.43 seconds, the fastest 60 meters in the world in 2026, and tied for 10th fastest of all time. Counted out to world leader in under 2 weeks. Then came March 1st. The gun fired. Anthony was leading at 30 meters. By 50 meters, it was over. He crossed in 6.45 seconds. Trayvon Bromell finished 2nd in 6.47. Noah Lyles, the reigning Olympic champion, finished 3rd in 6.51. Lyles walked over, removed the championship belt, and handed it to Anthony. Cameras caught Anthony quietly wiping Lyles' fingerprints off the belt while Lyles kept talking nearby. That clip went viral within hours. Lyles leaned in with a smile and said, "You're just babysitting it for me. It likes a bedtime story." Anthony stepped to the microphone and said, "I looked to my right and my left, and I was like, I don't hear Noah. I don't see Trayvon." GG's in the chat. New generation is taking over. Today was the day I had to give them their eviction notice. He was 21 years old. But here is the part nobody was paying enough attention to. Anthony had just qualified for the 2026 World Athletics Indoor Championships in Torun, Poland. It would be the first time in his entire life he had ever left the United States. No passport stamps. No overseas experience. His first international race ever would be a world championship final. He arrived as the world leader. Every coach in that building had studied his race in Staten Island. No surprises were available to him. Then something went wrong that nobody in the stands would ever know about. Before the final, Anthony went through mandatory anti-doping control. The blood draw did not go cleanly. A clot formed in his left arm. The swelling reached roughly the size of a golf ball. He could not fully twist or extend the arm. In a 60-meter sprint, your arms drive everything. The explosion out of the blocks, the mechanics through acceleration, the coordination all the way to the line. Anthony could not move that arm correctly. Most athletes would have withdrawn. Nobody would have blamed him. He ran anyway. The field included Kishane Thompson of Jamaica, who had run 9.77 in the 100 meters, and Bromell, who had gone 6.42 in the semifinal, faster than Anthony's personal best. The gun fired. He came out clean. He held his form through the middle 30 meters. Then he pulled away. 6.41 seconds. World champion. After crossing the line, Anthony said, "God put this dog in me." Then he walked over and started signing autographs and taking photos with fans. He said the race felt easy. Back in Florida, Lyles posted immediately on social media, "Stop playing on this man." The world record belongs to Christian Coleman, 6.34 seconds, set in 2018 and untouched for 8 years. The gap between that and Jordan Anthony right now is 0.07 seconds. He is 21. The outdoor season has barely begun. A kid from Tylertown who started sprinting for giggles just became world champion, and the record books are nowhere near safe. And then there is Lachlan Kennedy, a 22-year-old from Brisbane who began his athletic career on a rugby pitch, stepped into the blocks for a 100-meter heat, and crossed the line in 9.96 seconds. Wind plus 0.2 meters per second. Legal, official, historic. Kennedy had just become the first Australian man to break 10 seconds on home soil in the recorded history of the sport. Every sub 10 before this had happened overseas or was wind-assisted and never ratified. This one was clean. This one was home. He came back 24 hours later and did it again. April 11th, the national final. Rohan Browning got out fast. Joshua Azapardi pushed hard. Neither man could touch Kennedy in the second half of the race. He stretched away from both of them like he was running something entirely different. The clock stopped at 9.96 seconds again, wind plus 0.5. Azapardi finished second in 10.16. Browning took third in 10.19. Kennedy had broken 10 seconds twice in the same championship, won his first Australian national title, and set the championship record at Sydney Olympic Park. 2 days, 2 races, 2 9.96s. The same man, the same track, no accidents. What makes this story different from every other fast time you have heard about is what came before it. Kennedy grew up in Brisbane attending St. Joseph's College. Before he ever wore spikes, he wore a rugby jersey, and not just casually. He was good enough to represent Australia at the junior international level in rugby union. Speed was always his weapon, but the track was never the plan. Then he made the decision, walked away from rugby entirely, and committed to sprinting. The results came fast. In 2022, at just 18 years old, he helped break a 12-year-old Australian relay record, running 39.3 seconds. That same year, he competed at the World Athletics Under-20 Championships in Cali, Colombia. By 2024, he was at the Paris Olympics, not as a reserve, but as a genuine contributor to Australia's 4x100 relay team that set a new Oceanian record of 38.12 seconds. A junior rugby player turned Olympian in 2 years. In January 2025, competing in Canberra, he ran 60 meters in 6.43 seconds, erasing the Australian and Oceanian record and placing himself inside the top 10 fastest men in history over that distance. People called it fake, wind-assisted, questionable timing. 2 months later, Kennedy carried that form to the World Athletics Indoor Championships in Nanjing, China, in his very first indoor race. He ran 6.52 in the heats, held off Ronnie Baker in the semis, and stood in a World Championship final. He ran 6.50 seconds. Silver medal, 0.01 seconds behind winner Jeremiah Azu of Great Britain. The doubters had nothing left to say. Then in May 2025, he ran 9.98 seconds over 100 meters at the Kipco Classic in Nairobi, only the second Australian in history to legally break the 10-second barrier. And then in April 2026, on home soil, twice in 2 days, 9.96. The trajectory is steep. The ceiling looks limitless. Finally, Noah Lyles got married on April 4, 2026. The ceremony was at the conservatory at Blackberry Ridge in Trenton, Georgia. The theme was all shades of melanin, brown and gold everywhere through the suits, the bridesmaid gowns, the flowers. Lyles married Jamaican sprinter Junelle Bromfield in front of everyone they loved. But the moment that stopped people had nothing to do with speed. Lyles had kept a secret for weeks. Junelle's favorite gospel singer, Tasha Cobbs Leonard, appeared and performed at the reception. Nobody knew it was coming. Not even Junelle. Then came the vows. Junelle's hands shook so badly she could not hold her vow card. So Lyles held it for her. Both of them were crying at the altar. He told Vogue afterward, "I ended up holding it for her, but I was also crying so I couldn't wipe away my own tears." Junelle grew up in poverty in Jamaica, raised by a single mother alongside 7 siblings. Her mother passed away in 2021 from stage 4 cervical cancer. Walking down that aisle was proof of everything her mother had prayed for. When the internet criticized Lyles for not showing enough excitement at first sight of her dress, Junelle shut it down herself. She said his reaction was exactly what she needed. Most people assumed Lyles would take time off after the wedding. He did not. April 17, 2026. 13 days after the ceremony. The Tom Jones Memorial Invitational in Gainesville, Florida. Lyles had not run the 200 meters since winning the world title in Tokyo in September 2025, 7 months away from his best event. He crossed the line in 19.91 seconds, wind plus 1.6, the fastest time in the entire 200-meter field across all 6 heats. Behind him, Max Thomas, a 2025 USA Outdoor finalist, ran 19.98 seconds, the first time Thomas had ever broken 20 seconds in his career. Then there was 18-year-old Tate Taylor, who ran 20.05 seconds, breaking the high school record that Noah Lyles himself had set years earlier. The next generation came to Gainesville, chasing Lyles's old records. Lyles came to Gainesville 2 weeks after his wedding and beat every single one of them. The morning after, he returned to the track for a 4x100 relay. His team, Gainesville Elite, included Jordan Anthony, Trayvon Bromell, and 18-year-old British sprinter Jacob Jordan. Together they ran 37.78 seconds, beating the national squad. Anthony, the same man who called Lyles old 2 months earlier, ran a personal best of 9.91 seconds in the individual 100 meters that same day. Nobody took anything away from Anthony. He was still running brilliantly. But Lyles anchored the team that beat everyone. Before the 2026 season, Lyles had said publicly, "I've decided to take this year and make it a fan's year for our sport." That is not a man stepping back. That is a man building something. On June 28th, he runs the Paris Diamond League at the Stade de France, the exact track where 2 years ago he ran 9.79 seconds and became the fastest man in the world. He currently holds 6 Diamond League titles. One more gives him the outright all-time record. A man who cried at the altar holding his wife's vow card, who had not run the 200 in 7 months, who was called old by his own training partner, ran 19.91 seconds 13 days after his wedding, and then anchored a relay team to 37.78 the next morning. He is 29 years old, and the sport has never looked more alive.